I remember when you were, and I'm speaking in kind of layman's terms because this is how I kind of view the sport, but I remember when you became like the head official, I liked it, because I knew that you knew what you were looking for. I knew that you would, when you saw something, you'd know what it was.
Right.
And as a competitor, you want the garage to be policed, and I knew that you would do a great job at that. But to your point, over the years, your focus and NASCAR's focus became more about safety and a quicker, more rapid evolution towards safety. And I did, we started having these meetings in Daytona for the drivers during testing. And you were always involved there.
Always there, yeah.
And which were new and informative and drove home the seriousness that we needed to have for our own safety and what our cars look like.
So I brought a list.
Yeah.
It's not a good list.
Yeah.
It's 10 drivers that lost their life driving NASCAR cars from 1991 to 2001.
Yeah.
Grant Adcox, J.D. McDuffie, John Nemechek, Rodney Orr, Neil Bonnet, Clifford Allison, Adam Petty, Kenny Irwin, Tony Roper, Dale Earnhardt. So 91 to 2001, I'm the it's my watch.
Yeah.
Right. I knew them all, friends with them all, had conversations with them about don't do it that way anymore. Try to steer their careers. Rodney Orr, for instance, it was 10 minutes after I had a conversation with him that he died in practice at Daytona. Neil Bonnet, great friend. Clifford Allison, I talked to him an hour before it, and then I went to the car. Most of these, I was at the car at the accident scene. That leaves scars that don't go away.
Yeah.
So what we did in those days, and it's on me because we built the cars within our community, we raced the cars within our community, we wrecked the cars, and we built them better, all within the NASCAR community. I thought there was nobody outside that knew more about this sport than us. When we got to Adam Petty's crash at Loudon, we started talking, and I said, okay, well, let me get my group together. We had, people in the industry, Mike Laughlin, Steve Meal, logical thinking people that I had that I knew would be straight shooters. And we go look at the wrecked car. You came to the NASCAR center and saw your dad's car, right? So we would bring people in, but when you came, you brought Steve Meal, or I had asked Steve to come, and I think you asked for him you asked him if you could come along. So going through all that, knowing that I was a director, it was people, not only my friends, but I was in charge of the rule book as well. I had an engineer working for me named Steve Peterson.
Oh, yeah.
And Steve was a great guy. That he's the one that pulled me aside and said, we need outside help. And so those meetings you're talking about, we brought in John Melvin he was a GM engineer, but he was really a safety engineer. And John starts talking about restraint systems and Hans devices and seats and most of these names I read off were basal skull fractures. That's where your body stops and your head goes forward and it breaks the base of your skull.
Yeah.
I learned a lot of things I didn't really want to learn in that period of time, but in the end, going outside of our community for help, that was the biggest step that I think has brought us to where we are today. So when your dad's accident happened at Daytona, we were on our way with with John Melvin on restraints, and we're on our way with Dean. We brought in Dean Sicking. We got a hold of him through Tony George at Indianapolis. They were trying to do a soft wall project, and they had hired the University of Nebraska to do a study on it. We joined that study, so we had the restraint system started with John, and we had started on the soft wall study. And then your dad's accident happened, and we had to investigate that one along with the other ones, but we had the most data on your dad's accident. And we were starting to meet on a regular basis within the NASCAR group, and also those three guys, John Melvin, Dean Sicking, and Jim Radden, engineer, all of them biomechanical engineers. All, bio means he understands the human body, and mechanical means he understands the mechanical side of it. All PhDs, great guys. And we're having a meeting to look at the outcry after your dad's accident, after Tony Roper, Cranny Irwin, and Adam Petty, also all in a short time frame, was I got letters like crazy, being the director of everybody's idea under the sun of how to
fix it,
how to fix the problem. I bet you 90% of them were about the bumpers on the car, maybe more than 90. So I am faced with, we have a limited time, we're racing every week, and we don't have a huge budget, but we got to do something to make this sport safer. And so we took, we were investigating things and learning. These guys from the outside, with their way of investigating things, they opened our eyes into what to actually look for and see things that we hadn't seen. The seatbelt broke in your dad's car, and we learned that when the fabric is stretched too far, it actually melts in each thread has a little melted spot, which tells us it was a tear, not just stretched to death. Mm-hmm. And so so I asked the guys, I said, I've got this list of hundreds of things that people are suggesting. I got to get the most gain the quickest. What do I work on? What does NASCAR work on first to make this sport safer? And the three of them, one's a barrier guy, one's a seatbelt guy, and Jim Radden was an Air Force surgeon that was also in charge of ejection seats on fighter jets. So the things the Air Force had gone through trying to make a pilot safe as he's ejecting were very similar to what we were going through. So they said, the three of them said, we're going to go away for dinner. We'll meet you tomorrow, and we'll give you our thoughts. They came back the next day, and they said, let's look at it like a pie, safety pie. The biggest part of safety is going to be 65% of your work should be on restraint systems. You should restrain the driver in the car. Your dad always thought he wanted stretch in his belts.
Yeah.
He wanted to move around. He had this system that he and I talked about it quite a bit, especially when you started driving. He called me over and started telling me ideas because he was more worried about you than himself. But his logic was that the belt should stretch and he should move around and he shouldn't be held tight, which is opposite of what these engineers are telling us. 65% is the hold of safety, is to hold the driver tightly in the car.
Yes.
The seats got much better. The belts got much better. We did studies and found there's a company called SFI. Mm-hmm. At the time, they were giving, if you send a set of seatbelts to SFI, you would send a set of strength numbers. They would test the belts you sent them to the number you sent them and say, yep, they passed. Here's your sticker, SFI approved.
Yep.
they asked me what they could do different. And I said, number one, you go buy it from the parts store like a racer buys it. Number two, you test it to the standards we'll give you to make sure it passes that standard. And number three, you cause them you have periodic retesting to make sure they don't slip on their quality.
Yeah.
When we did that, SFI changed their way of doing business, and that's exactly what. So we did the study. We gave them all the information. All of that became SFI, which is now the leader in
the standard.
Yeah, you know when you buy something that says SFI, it's correct. In those days, not so much.
Yeah.
So we went 65% was restraints, 25% was the wall. What you hit should give a little bit, should move a little bit, and you'll lower the G-force the driver feels by 25% if what he hits moves. And that left 10% for the whole rest of the car. That includes fire, intrusion, bumpers, everything is only 10% of all of those letters I had from all of the so-called experts.
Yeah.
Went to the side, and we went right to work on the first two the most.
Yeah.
And so we developed a safer wall. I think we crashed, I think it was 20-some cars without a driver into a wall at 100 and some miles an hour. I think it was 120 or 30. The worst crash of all the drivers was Adam Petty's. The hardest, when we studied the information, so that was the crash data we used to simulate the angle and the hit.
Yeah. And
eventually we found a safer wall, as Dean Sicking and his group found a safer wall, and we've got it up on all the tracks now. The way, if you think about the safer wall, you don't want a soft wall. It's like a catcher's mitt. It'll catch the car and actually be worse. Our first tests were that way. So you want so if you're going 200 miles an hour down the straightaway at Pocono, and you move over and you touch the wall, did you hit the wall at 200 miles an hour? Your speed into the wall might have been 2 miles an hour.
Right.
So the wall and the car, the difference is how hard you hit the wall, 2 miles an hour, right? But you're traveling 200. A NASCAR car very seldom has a T crash into anything, maybe another car, but the car moves when you hit it. So there's not a solid hit 90 degrees in NASCAR. They're all some amount of speed down the track and some amount of speed into the wall.
Yeah.
And so some of the, I don't remember the numbers, it's 20 some years ago, but most of the accidents we looked at, the speed into the wall wasn't all that great. The speed down the track was almost always greater. So the wall itself has a steel cover that pushes in and doesn't catch the car. It kind of redirects the car to go on down the track rather than stop suddenly. Now, if you watch the race at Chicago, those guys went into the tire wall. That was a 90-degree hit. The tires are great for that. The tires aren't great for a glancing blow. So guys would hit the tire wall and bounce out and drive off.
Oh, yeah.
But that's 90 degrees. The speed into the wall was the speed of the car, pretty much, in those crashes. So it's hard. The things I learned over that time frame was amazing. But since we've implemented all of the ideas of the restraint system, the wall, and then slowly into the car, I'm glad this is wood because we've gone 22. Dale's crash was February 18th, 2001. Now it's July 9th of 2024.
Yeah.
So hope we keep it up.